we are collectively experiencing spiritual distress and that we are all at risk for spiritual distress. And so I broke out my super old nursing diagnosis handbook. This is super old, but it still has everything that I needed as a nurse to make that connection between what we are feeling and what's going on in the world. Okay, so spiritual distress is defined as the impaired ability to experience and integrate meaning and purpose in life through a person's connectedness with self, others, art, music, literature, nature, or a power greater than oneself. The defining characteristics in our connections to self could be a lack of hope, meaning purpose in life, peace and serenity, acceptance, love, forgiveness of self, courage, anger, guilt, and poor coping. In our connections with others, we could possibly express alienation, refuse to interact with our friends and family, or not feel like interacting with our friends and family. We might verbalize being separated from our support system. Now imagine all the people in Palestine right now who are in spiritual distress. Connections with art, music, literature, and nature, we might have an inability to express a previous state of creativity, singing, listening to music, and writing. I know for myself, I am personally experiencing that, and you are experiencing it with me as you have not seen me posting, you've not seen me writing. I literally have not been listening to music, and things have been pretty quiet around my house. Connections with a power greater than oneself, inability to pray, and remember, prayer is a quantum tool. It is a scientific tool to connect with the field. The inability to participate in religious activities. I am not a religious person, so for me this doesn't apply, but there might be others of you, in particular Jewish people, who are not happy with what's happening with Israel, and expressions of being abandoned or by or having anger towards God, inability to experience the transcendent, requests to see a religious leader, sudden changes in spiritual practice, inability to be introspective or inward turning. And with so many planets retrograde, we might actually have an inability to not be inward turning, which can be equally as devastating. And expresses being without hope or suffering. It says spiritual well-being should be thought of in a broad sense and not limited to religion. I think we all know that now, right? All people are religious in the sense that they need something to give meaning to their lives. I would call that spirituality. For some, it is a belief in God in the traditional sense. For others, it's a feeling of harmony with the universe. For still others, it may be family and children. When the patient believes that life has no meaning or purpose in whatever sense, then spiritual distress is present. Some of the following suggested alternatives diagnosis may lead to spiritual distress, such as anxiety, decisional conflict, and ineffective coping. Now, I don't believe that we have to be so, absolutely despondent for there to be a sense of spiritual distress. In fact, I think that it would be hard to be a soul without, in this current moment, without experiencing spiritual distress. And so, I do want to remind you that while there are many different diagnoses that we all might fall into individually, like anxiety or sorrow or emotional pain, spiritual distress is actually addressing the soul, right? And so that's why this is so important, because I think it's so important for us to really be checking into our souls right now. because that can help us rise above sort of partisan politics, tribalism, and a variety of other things, and actually move us into our own sense of collective experience, the one mind, the thing that is greater than ourselves. And just the fact that when any of us are suffering, we're all suffering in a sense. A risk factor of spiritual distress is physical or psychological stress, situational losses, natural disasters, inability to forgive. That's a big one right now, right? Our inability to forgive the other. Energy consuming anxiety. And, I'm just going to say that it's really important for us to be careful of what information we're taking in, because it can really be something that zaps our energy. And I think we all know that and, are aware of that. This is a time also when we are under spiritual distress, when our energy systems are assaulted, when the stress levels, our cortisol levels are high, that we are actually sort of open for, we're at risk for having other energy forms, negative energy, cords, attachments, soul parts to attach to you and your field at this point. So I also want to encourage you and remind you all that it's so important that you are clear about your own feelings, and that especially for those of us, and most of you that follow me are highly sensitive beings. And so it is super important that you remember that you can only handle your feelings, and you can only take responsibility for your feelings, right? Your emotions. You cannot take responsibility for other people's emotions. You can't change their mind. You can't, do maybe what you want to do or have them see the way you want to see. So I just want to remind you that it's so important to stand in your spiritual ground, stand your spiritual space, to be able to be grounded, knowing where you are in space, like where your energetic boundaries end and others might begin, and to know your feelings, because that's a big deal. Sometimes, especially for us empaths, we're taking on the feelings of the people around us, the world, the groupthink. And I just want you to be aware that you can shield yourself from that. The whole point is to make sure that you can, just know who you are, right? And only take responsibility for your feelings. Something else that I think is important to say is that I think if we resist our feelings also, that can lead to more spiritual distress. And so I want to remind you that it is always important to feel your feels. It takes 90 seconds for an emotion, which is energy in motion, to move through you. 90 seconds. So when you are feeling grief, if you are feeling sadness, overwhelm, whatever you are feeling, just stop and breathe and just let it move through you. If you feel like crying, cry. Whatever comes, just allow it. The more you block these feelings, the more they become crystallizations in our body, which can then cause different diseases, different disease, breast cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer, all of it. So it's so important to just allow yourself to feel those feels. What you can do to help with a state of spiritual distress, to just do what you can do from where you are. It is so important to take control in some area of your life or in some way, using whatever form of discipline, ritual, repetition, that you have. And that means, like if that means getting up and having 5 minutes of quiet where you are praying for peace, you're setting an intention. Uh, you can section your day to be very intentional. I'm moving into this moment, and this is my intention. Sending your messengers before your face to lay your good works before you, bringing in the people at the right moment, the right people at the right time for whatever it is that is needed, right? Um, Role modeling means understanding the importance of how you walk through your life and how that sets a frequency for other souls, other, beings to come to you, to sort of rise to that level of wellness. And this is, Julie, to appreciate this, this is actually a nursing theory, the role modeling. And Helen Erickson is, I think, the theorist who put this out there. And I think it's a very powerful holistic theory because, we can demonstrate peace and calm. We can stand for peace, right? And then, therefore, wherever we go, we are truly using ourselves as instruments of healing. As nurses, we are instruments of healing, but I think every being has the capacity to be an instrument of healing. Now, you have to think about this. People wanting to go to war, that is a state of insanity, right? We are not in that state of insanity, so it's very difficult to relate to that. So it's so important for you to be able to walk through this life as a place of peace, to create sacred space, by being a frequency of well-being, by modeling, holding that frequency of well-being. And that's being compassionate. That's being understanding. That's being non-reactionary. That maybe even just being still. So I hope that we can find the love and the compassion to remember that, shooting up humans is not the way to peace. It's that ability to choose love that makes us human. And so I hope that you will choose love.